Hey there YouTube, I'm Yukitsu, this is the Yukitsu Times, welcome to my channel, welcome to a little bit more Total War Warhammer. So as you can guess it from this map being the exact same as all our other games, this is going to be another tournament match. Just before the patch hits, so this is going to be pretty interesting. But we're playing as the Dwarves, we're up against the Beastmen. We're playing with the Brimstone Gyrocopter. We're just taking one, which I think is a reasonable thing to take against Beastmen, just to harass them, and focus down a little bit of damage if I'm stuck getting pelted by a Cygor. We've got a front line of 5 Longbeards. We've got our General. We've got the Runesmith over there. And we've got a Thane. We've got 3 units of Quarrelers. We've got 4 units of Dwarf Warriors. And we've got 2 units of Slayers. So I'm trying, that's a bit new in this one, are of course the Slayers. We've got 2 of them. And I wanted to also see if it was worth taking a Runesmith, which I hadn't taken prior to this point here. We're up against 2 units of Chaos Warhounds with Poison. We're up against the 2 Razor Gore Chariots over there. We've got a Bray Shaman back there hidden away. We've got a bunch of different types of Gores here. I believe they're regular Gores. Yep. Oh, no, Goreherd with shields. Okay. Mix of Goreherd and Goreherd with shield. Apparently we've got 2 Ungors. We've got, what's this back here? Goreherd, Beast Lord over there. We've got the 1 unit of Gorebull, 1 Gorebull. Got the Minotaurs with shields and the Minotaurs with shields. So it's a little bit harder to tell what's actually going on here because of the woods, but that's sort of what my opponent has here. So he's sort of fallen into the same trap that I have, which is taking the Razor Gore Chariots, which are bloody awful. But in any event, my opponent is going to fall back with those Chaos Warhounds. They were in missile shot. It was a bad place for them to sort of be. But he will be pulling up the Cygor, and I did sort of suspect that he would be. We're starting to pelt away a little bit at these Razor Gore Chariots with our little bit of a Brimstone Blast Gyrocopter. It's going to be able to put down some good damage to this thing pretty early, but I could also go and deal with the Minotaurs, but I don't actually know if the missile block chance of these guys works against the Brimstone Gyrocopters or not. I get the feeling like they should work against that, but I don't think they do. Either way, though, he's coming around back with these Chaos Warhounds. It's going to make it a little bit more difficult for me later, but for now, that's perfectly fine. Now, his front line, strictly speaking, not too strong here. Now I can sort of see this better. It's an Ungor herd, a Gore herd with shields, Ungor Spearman. This one has shields, actually. Ungor Spearman herd. Okay, so yeah, it's just a sort of blend of different types of Ungors and Gores in a sort of interesting configuration there. Here comes up the Cygor. It's going to be a little bit tricky for me to deal with in some respects. We're able to sort of move to intercept this army here, but we're going to have to deal with that Cygor later and separately in some respect. Now, these guys hidden in the woods here are not taking as much damage as they normally would from these shots, just because the forest does provide some protection against these missiles in particular. We are still dealing some pretty okay chip damage. We've dealt about 1,000, I think. I think they've dealt about that on full health one. Maybe not, actually. But still, just dealing as much damage as we possibly can, getting ourselves set up in position here, and we are going to get ourselves into approximately a good position before his lines impact us. We got our Thane sort of also pushed up to the front here, and we're also going to start popping Rune of Oath of Steel, Rune of Negation, and all that other good stuff as we charge in. And he sort of clumped up his charge here a little bit here. These guys are kind of engaging on just a couple of my units, trying to bust through perhaps, but not necessarily doing the best job of spreading out properly. This Gore herd gets hit by the Rune of Wrath and Rune, and he also pegs a lot of his own Ungors with a rock there from the Cygor. It's a little bit dangerous firing that sort of thing into melee. He's got tons of Minotaurs and his Gorebull heading into my front line here. That Longbeards, they're otherwise unengaged, but they do have their brace bonus there. And we're going to turn the Quarrelers to face them here, and we're also going to charge in with another unit of Dwarf Warriors and a unit of Slayers to reinforce this, because we don't want him punching through too easily. Over here, though, things are going differently. My Lord and my Runesmith are getting tangled in there, but over here he's managed to intercept my unit of Quarrelers that I'd sent to try and deal with the Giant, perhaps, but he managed to take them out pretty easily with those Razor Gore Chariots. They're just too fast for me to get back to my lines with, but that's relatively okay. Second unit of Slayers is just running into the fight. I'm not really sure why I sent them over here. I think that I send them sort of across this way in towards this Minotaur fight here, but they get caught on the Beast Lord. Not actually a terrible target for them to start focusing down, but they're the wrong people to do it. Get this unit of Dwarf Warriors over there as well, but yeah, it's not going to be too easy. He's being chased down a little bit with these Razor Gore Chariots with my Dwarf Warriors here, who are able to sort of block them from getting into the fight cleanly, and they're also taking a lot of damage as they come along. My Lord here, fighting away with these Minotaurs with shields, they're taking some hits from runes and stuff like that, They've got the Mantle of Gorok, which is letting them fight really, really effectively, but I think that also started hitting them, because it does deal damage to them, of course, and I think that that damage actually causes them to break, so it doesn't get the biggest benefit out of that possible. Runesmith rather, milling around here somewhere. Where'd he go? Here he is. But he's popping both his runes again. He's going to be able to sort of cycle through those pretty quickly. It does seem to help quite a bit in this case, where the Beastmen already have trouble breaking through the Dwarven defenses. This makes it seems to make it even more exacerbated. But their Beastlord here is chewing through these Slayers really, really well. They're a bad call against a Beastlord, because he's a heavily armored, single-target, non-monster, so, you know. But either way, our lines at this point in time have sort of dealt with the majority of the Beastmen, but they still have plenty of troops left. They're chasing away my backline pretty effectively with those Chaos Warhounds, and they've still got these chariots sort of in my backline here. Now he does plow into my Slayers, and that's not really the best place for these guys, because these guys get big bonuses against these chariots. My Thane's able to sort of run into these guys as well because of this, and they're still getting shot, of course, by my Gyrocopters. So this is going to pop them pretty quickly there. We're able to get another unit of Longbeards in here as well, and we're able to sort of rotate out these Slayers out of this fight. Got Slayers here, though. These ones are much, much healthier. They're helping my General take down this Gorbel, and Gorbel does not actually like fighting Slayers that much. These guys are going to be able to deal quite a bit of damage to this guy, as well as to these Minotaurs with shields. They're getting charged in the rear with the Dwarf Warriors as well. Now, he does have this unit of relatively undamaged chariots, but it's not going to help too much. Devastating bomb strike there, taking out 2 units of Ungor herds that were pretty clumped up there. Another pop from these Minotaurs over there. I think we're out of ammunition on these Gyrocopters, actually, so it's going to be a little bit unfortunate, but yeah, no, our heroes are still doing pretty well. We're piling in against this Razorgore Chariot. We're going to try and come in and surround it as best as we can there. The General's also piled in there, but we got some Slayers mixed into that fight there. The Gorbel over here is chugged his Potion of Toughness, which is going to help quite a bit, because these Slayers don't have good armor-piercing damage. Neither does the Dwarf Lord, neither does the Dwarf Warriors. So none of these units deal great damage against something like a Gorbel who's using that potion, but they're still going to deal pretty good enough damage. The Gyrocopters have piled into the fight against the Razorgore Chariots, and the reason, of course, is that if he tries to pull out, I'll deal a lot of damage to him, probably be able to kill him. Lots and lots of Beastmen, though, starting to rally. I probably should get this Runesmith back into this fight, and I actually do. He's going to charge into these Ungor Spearmen. These Chariots over here starting to break. Looks like our Helicopters are still relatively in the fight, not tremendously in the fight, but enough in the fight. Trying to intercept these Razorgore Chariots with some Dwarves. I do believe we pull out with these Brimstone guns here. We're going to both Steel down again. It's such a spammable ability that it's helping out quite a bit, because the Beastmen have trouble dealing with that extra bit of armor. If I was up against an armor-piercing army, that bonus would be worth practically nothing, even though it was coming up constantly, just because they wouldn't be taking any armor-piercing or non-armor-piercing units anyway. So, like Chaos, for example, against Dwarves, it'd be pretty useless in that sort of scenario. We've got a couple of units heading over towards the Cygor, including a rallied unit of Whirlers. We're going to start firing away at the Cygor here. Other than that, though, a lot of units from these guys are starting to waver and sort of filter out of the fight. Razorgore Chariot coming back in one last time. It's going to mash into the fronts of these dwarves, who are kind of braced, and they don't really do that much damage to my dwarves here. So, able to get in with the Gyrocopters, chase them again pretty soon, if I recall correctly. I think that's what I end up doing. And you can see that these guys are just pretty much pulling out of the fight at this point in time. Broken at this point. Going to try and deal some damage to them so that if they rally, there's going to just be 2 of them. Because obviously with these sorts of units, if there's like... Yeah, so now they're just down to 2. We're going to try and chase them down, I think. But at this point in time, the Cygor has broken through my unit of Dwarf Warriors. He's going to start marching forward towards these Quarrelers, or firing at them, I can't remember which. But my Quarrelers are actually in 2 low numbers, and they've got 2 little ammunition left to actually take this guy down, but it's probably fine. Gorbel over here is sort of standing his ground. I think he's rallied. Got a Thane over here. He's chasing down the Beast Lord. Should be relatively okay. Thane not necessarily able to match it, but of course, when there's this big of a difference in hit points, it's gonna probably happen. Gorbel gets charged by those Dwarf Warriors there, and this is probably going to spell the end of the battle here. So, just shows, again, like, the difficulty that Beastmen, I think, have in this particular matchup. They just lack the armor-piercing units to really mash through all that Dwarven armor. So, anyway, let's go on to our second match here, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, and we're back. So in this match, I'm going to be playing as Chaos. We're up against ZearothK's Dwarves, so it's a bit of a reversal of the last set of matches. But in any event, I've got a front line here of 6 Chaos Warriors with great weapons. We've got a back line here of 7 of these Chaos Marauders with great weapons. Now, this is a battle I'm not really experimenting anything with, because I know how to beat Dwarves with Chaos. This is something that I've done before. Chaos Sorcerer with Fire, and the Chaos Lord with some potions. So we're up against 2 Gyrocopter units. Pretty good sort of effective type of thing there. He's got 4 Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. He's got, I believe, 2 Quarrelers and 1 Thunderer. He's got 2 Longbeards with great weapons, and I believe he's got 1 unit of Slayers. Yeah, 1 unit of Slayers. He's also got the Trollhammer Torpedoes, the Ungrim Iron Fist, and he's got a Runesmith. So this is pretty different from my mentality with the army list. You can see that he's just got a much smaller army than what I had, and it's got a sort of mixed roster here. Now, the crossbows are not going to necessarily be that useful in this particular fight, but they're not actually a bad choice, just in case I'd taken something like Giants, Trolls, or something like that. Oh yeah, I've got 2 Chaos Warhound units sort of way back there. So we've got this sort of rolling tide of Chaos melee infantry here that are going to be able to probably outmatch what the Dwarves have if they get into a fight. So this is a bit of a compositional risk that my opponent took, in that he's got 4 missile units plus 2 Gyrocopters, and the amount of points that he's sunk into those missile units, I spent all of that on heavily armored and non-heavily armored armor-piercing units. So if you were to sort of add it all up, it's 1,600 for those, 2,700 once you add in this. You're looking at about 4,000 points worth of missile units or so. So you could probably afford like 4 or 5 melee units out of that. I forget what the Dwarf Warrior with Great Weapon costs right now. I think, is it 500 points or so? Could be like 500 something points. I think 525, 550, 575, somewhere around there. But he could have afforded quite a few more melee infantry units if he had gone that route. So he's going to start firing away at my Chaos Lord, and that's relatively okay. But we're able to sort of charge in with a whole bunch of these units here, these Chaos Warriors with great weapons. They're going to start moving in. The Marauders, moving much faster than them, are not going to have the same issues. Now, my Lord actually is a good sort of semi-bait-like thing to use in this situation, because he doesn't really take that much damage from those missiles. Like, they cost a couple hundred points, but as long as you're not standing there continuously. This is a big mistake that my opponent made, which was he walked forward with the Trollhammer Torpedoes. They're not great in this composition against what I've taken anyway. They would have been really good if I had taken something like Chaos Knights, or if I had taken Trolls, or if I had taken a Giant or anything like that, but I didn't take anything like that. I just took a grind down, beat him up, slog him through kind of Chaos Army here. And it really does show that these guys should not have been positioned here, because they take a ton of damage. Just dropping bombs on these units of Chaos Warriors, it's not really a great target for that. It'll work, but it's not great. Fireball being chucked out from our Chaos Sorcerer with Lore Fire there, that actually gets 23 kills right off the bat there, so it's not really that bad. We're having our Chaos Lord stay in the air, but he's attacking these Gyrocopters. He's doing a good job of tearing them down quite a bit, but he is focus firing them with his other Gyrocopter. Again, we're not too concerned about the amount of damage that we're taking here. He could have reinforced it with additional shots from these Quarrelers and from these Thunderers, but we are just tying them up with our melee cavalry here with the Chaos Warhounds. This does break this unit of Gyrocopters, so we're able to sort of get free with our Chaos Lord here. He is still going to be pursued by this other Gyrocopter, but they're going to sort of peel off and start dealing damage elsewhere. And we're continuing to pop down like Cascading Fire Cloaks, the Flaming Sword of Ruin. It's going to let us have way more damage and deal way more damage to these units. We're getting Chaos Marauders into the flanks of these Quarrelers here. Even though they were just tied down by those units of Chaos Warhounds, they're beating them back now, because he did reinforce them with Slayers. But that meant that Slayers were fighting there, and at this point in time, like, I've actually busted through a part of his line here, so my Chaos Warriors and Chaos Marauders are starting to get into these missile units here, into the Slayers, and those Iron Drake Trollhammer Torpedoes are still not really doing anything. We've crumpled this unit by throwing my General into the rear of it, and that's quite good for us. He's able to take off into the air again without taking that much damage. Trollhammer Torpedoes getting slammed by this unit of Marauders that was fighting on his flank, and like these Longbeards with great weapons, I want to clear them off, so our General's going off to deal with that. This Chaos Sorcerer with the Lore of Fire here has been supremely good against these dwarves. We're breaking through on this front here. He's just got the Runesmith. This unit of Quarrelers is now engaged in combat, although they are firing regardless. My general over here could probably be recalled. I need to actually get him into this blob over here, I think. I think that would actually be for the better. But we're starting to pull through the rest of his line there. Chaos Sorcerer, like, MVP of this match, probably. Gyrocopter with the Brimstone Gun actually is what I end up charging. I probably should have charged into this, but look at how much damage that Chaos Lord does to those Brimstone Gyrocopters. Able to just tear them apart in 2 hits. That was the weakened unit. I don't know where his full health one is. There they are. Chasing away my Chaos Warhounds. One of the units of Howard rallied. And yeah, like, you can see that this is a mop-up operation at this point in time. I think that missile units are good for dwarves against chaos. I just don't think that you need that much shooting. It's an overinvestment, and it's that sort of overinvestment that a lot of people fall into. It's like a trap, basically, because people say, like, to spam gyrocopters. I don't think that's actually a great way to win a match against chaos. I think that, you know, maybe 2 is the most I would actually recommend taking, but I'm more likely to just say 1. Of course, it's going to get chased around by the Chaos Lord, but if the Chaos Lord's chasing your gyrocopter around the map, then you know what, you've already won that, because the general is worth a lot more than that gyrocopter. So unless you've got him chasing around the map and near your army, that general is pretty much wasted. But if you're sort of running like far away, you're losing 800 points, that general's losing a lot. Conversely, if your opponent runs away with the gyrocopter, you should probably just chase it until your general's nearly away from your army, but then pull him back and then rear charge a unit instead. Anyway, that was our second match here. It was a pretty good game, but yeah, just a compositional thing there that I think really hampered my opponent. Like, Chaos is pretty straightforward when you're up against dwarves. You just take Chaos Warriors with great weapons, and you take Marauders with great weapons. There's not a whole lot that the dwarves have that sort of answer that. But anyway, let's go ahead to our next match. Okay, so this is our round 3. We're playing as the Beastmen here. Like I said, we're just playing as the 4 bottom tier armies. We've got a huge line of Goreherd with shields with a bit of chevrons, and I figured, I talked about this I think in my last set, I think that the Goreherd with shield, when you're not paying for that Vanguard deployment, in a certain sense is probably actually a little bit better than the standard Goreherds for the price point. We've got 2 units of Minotaurs with shields, again shields because we're up against Empire. We've got the 4 units of the Ungor Spearman Herd, not with shields. We've got the 3 Ungor Raiders, we've got our Beast Lord, got a Bray Shaman with Lore of the Wild, and we've got a Gorebull. So we're using about the about 2% sort of leeway that you can get. Personally, I think that I don't like using that. I feel it's a bit cheaty, but I think Beastmen kind of need it, since Beastmen are one of those really weak factions with the factional rules sets given. Now, my opponent over here has got, I believe it's 2 Demigryph Knights, sort of hidden in the background over there. He's got a front line consisting of 5 units of Spearmen, 2 Swordsmen, he's got the 2 Handgunners, the Witch Hunter, 2 Halberdiers, the Volkmar the Grim as his general, and he's got the Witch Hunter. Now, I think that Volkmar the Grim is actually a really good general in many respects. I believe this one's mounted, yes he is. So he's a pretty good all-around general, in my opinion. He's also got the Witch Hunter, which I think is a pretty good character setup if you want to go for something sort of unique. I don't really agree with the Hellstorm Rocket Battery, I just don't think it's ever worth it. And I also don't think that he needs to frontline with 5 units of spears. I think 2 or 3 to sort of tie up and capture my like Gorbulls or my Minotaurs is pretty good, but even then Halberdiers are even better. You want Swordsmen though for fighting against the front line. And here's the Demigryph Knights with Halberds. So like, if you've got Demigryph Knights with Halberds, you probably know that I can only take 2 Minotaurs in this composition setup, maximum of 2 Gorbulls, so you're probably looking at being able to counter most of that with just the Demigryph Knights, as long as I let you. The Swordsmen, however, I think would have been a really good replacement therefore for the Spearmen. And Hellstorm Rocket Battery is just... it would have to kill so many of my guys to make its points back, because these things are so expensive. Like, I think it has to kill something like 300, almost 300 of my guys. 270 I think could do it. Some of my units sort of juke around this little water feature here in the wrong direction, but we just have to get close to our opponent as fast as possible and just charge through this. He's going to make a bit of a strange setup here, sort of pillboxing around the Hellstorm rocket battery, which is what you sort of have to do when you've got expensive missile units. But the problem is that none of these missile units are going to mean jack diddly once he's actually engaged in melee combat with me. So he needs to sort of watch out for that. Now, I'm also trying something a little bit unique with this. And it's sort of something I had in theory in my back pocket here of like, okay, I bet there's a way to use the Call of the Wild and make that super, super effective. So we're going to get in here and we're going to start charging all of my opponent's units here with our cores. He's going to blow up some of his own, he's going to blow up some of mine, whatever. He's going to start firing away at my Gorbel, which is going to have to retreat. But we've charged into the flanks here, we've charged into the center, we're charging into this flank over here. Get a clip charge there, a bit of a bad charge there, but that's perfectly okay. And we're sort of running forward with our archers so that we can start firing at this artillery line and all these archers. But what's important is that our Bray Shaman is actually casting Call of the Wild right back behind here. Or, where the hell is he doing it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's back here. There he goes. And now there's a giant in melee combat behind this unit of spear infantry. Shaken attacked in the rear, it's a terror-causing monster, it's dealing good damage to them. We're breaking through here really, really easily. I made sure to point my Minotaurs after we engaged our lines together and to face them off against swordsmen. So they've torn straight through those swordsmen. And also these spearmen just wavered and ran away right away from terror. Beast Lord's going to start charging into there, and he's going to just pound them with a baseball throw there. And at this point in time, the Cygor is actually going to be near their backline. He's going to start moving into the spearmen from the side here. He's taking some damage from these handgunners, but the handgunners I'm focusing down with my Umbra Raiders. But yeah, now there's a giant in the flank of these spearmen here, and they're going to be in a bit of trouble. We've got our Minotaurs here just running back to attack Volkmar the Grim. And we're also dealing some damage here with Vile Tide. Not much, but it's a bit of disruption. It's pretty okay. Running back and forth with this Gorbel is pretty useless, but he does fend off the Demigryph Knights. Now my opponent does sort of forget about them there, but I was paying attention to them, so I still had things to sort of ward them off a little bit. It's just not necessarily a great idea to forget about high-value units like that. Cygor stomping his way through here. I think I eventually turned him around here and piled into the back of these guys. Yep, that's what we do. Still getting pelted by these missiles here, but this Witch Hunter is entangled in melee combat with these Goreherd. He actually would lose to a Goreherd, but the Goreherd here is like at really low health, so not really the best situation for him. The Ungor Raiders need to get a fight, but I've still got units backlining for me. Cygor comes in, rear of this Spearman infantry, damage sustained. At this point in time, my opponent has run in with these Demigryph Knights against this poor lonely unit of Goreherd with shields here. They're holding out for reasons which I cannot fathom, but we were able to get a good charge in against the Demigryph Knights with halberds with both the Gorbel and with our Ungor Spearmen. We're able to continue breaking the lines with this Cygor here as he just moves from unit to unit, breaking from line to line. This unit of Spearmen is now taking hits from the Gorbel and from the Cygor, and is taking pretty bad damage because of it. And at this point in time, my opponent doesn't really have that many missile units left. We still got our Beast Lord chasing down, and our Ungors, or sorry, our Gors with shields here chasing down the remaining fleeing units. But over here, we've got some problematic units rallying, falling back into a bit of a clump, but we've still got these units here ready to get them. Empire General Volkmar the Grim has actually shattered at this point in time. The Minotaurs for that long a period were just too much for him. But we were having a bit of a trouble. We were focusing down these Demigryph Knights. One of these units is sort of not in combat, kind of is, kind of isn't, but the Gorbel here, thanks to the support from some other units there, is able to tank his way through the Demigryph Knights, and they're going to shatter. So, yeah, like, there's some compositional things going on here that would have helped my opponent out a little bit. He overemphasized his sort of monster hunting units, and the ones that he did have weren't in the right place at sort of the right time. And he did forget about those Demigryph Knights for quite a while, so they could have been more crucial or critical during that fight. And just not taking the Hellstorm rocket batteries, they're a really trash unit. But anyway, let's go on to Game 4. Alright, and welcome to our Game 4 against Zearoth here. Now, this is a Bretonnia versus Orcs and Goblins match here. Again, we're going to see a pretty strange army composition from him. I think he sort of was a little bit on tilt from last game for this one, but let's go through our army rosters here. We've got a huge lineup of spears here. We've got, I think, 7, 8 of them, something like that. Let's see here, 4, 7. So 7 of the spearmen, we've got 4 of the archers, We've got 3 halberdiers. We've got 2 units of Knights of the Realm. In this particular case, we're going with the Lord on the Griffin, and we've got a Paladin somewhere. He's over here with our Pegasus Knights. So we've actually tried to do the Bretonnian Air Force here, but as much as we can with the particular restrictions in play. My opponent over here has 2 Forest Goblin Spider Riders that are going to be pretty late to the fight, and the Night Goblin Archers. The Night Goblin Archers shouldn't be back here just simply because they can't make it across the map fast enough to contribute that easily. My opponent has got the Doom Diver Catapult, 2 Orc Boar Boy Biggins, 2 Goblin Big Bosses with spiders. He's got a Night Goblin Shaman, which has been pushed forward to sort of scout forward or maybe get a pick or a spell early on. We've got, what is this, 6 units of Orc Boys and Biggins sort of mixed together. I think it's 2 and 4. So he's got 4 units of Orc Boys there. He's got 1 unit of Black Orcs, and he's got the Orc War Wasp. So opponent has got sort of a diversified roster in terms of where his points are being spent. Not a huge amount being spent on infantry, which is, I think, a really big strength for the Orcs and Goblins. Because not only are there like regular boys here relatively cheap and effective against Bretonnians, but he could have sort of gone like a lot of big guns as anti-cavalry, or he could have taken lots and lots of goblins. He's going to end up getting a lot of kills with the Doom Diver, but I still don't think it was necessarily a worthwhile investment in this case. I was pulling forward as fast as I could, but and then I realized, you know, I don't actually want to pull into melee combat. I want to be just shy, and I had overestimated or underestimated my longbow range, so I sort of fiddle around and pull back to this position here. We are able to get into a position in a good amount of time, and we're going to start seeing a absolute hail of arrows coming out of my guys here. I do believe this is Itchy Nuisance that's coming down here. Night Shroud, okay. Minus 30% accuracy is going to reduce the effectiveness of these arrows somewhat, but since he's in such large, clumped up formations, that's not really going to be that meaningful. And we can even see that this unit of Orc Biggins has practically been killed already. He is firing into these Spearman Arms, and that's going to be very, very effective. The Doom Diver is very, very accurate and deals a lot of damage, but we are going to charge in at the Doom Diver Catapult with our Paladin. That ability to fly and get back there safely is just quite useful. We've got our Knights of the Realm, though, coming around in the rear, and Bretonnians are really good for capturing charges like this. Our general is flying past and then is going to turn around and then charge into the rear of this unit here. We are getting hit by Itchy Nuisance now, I think. Nope. Yes, he's got Sneaky Stabbing on us and another Night Shroud. Night Shroud's not going to matter all that much right now, but we've got a couple charges coming into the back, these Orc Boys and these Orc Biggins. It's going to deal some pretty big damage. The enemy Orc General is charging straight into these Spearman Arms that are kind of weaker, but we're reinforcing with another Men-at-Arms unit right there. He should actually be dead center here, the Orc General. The reason that he should be is that his wall would capture the most possible units. Get another rear charge over here from our Pegasus Knights. Pretty devastating, even though it's not the most powerful charge, it's pretty good. They're hit by an Itchy Nuisance, but that doesn't matter so much because they still get their full charge bonus. That's enough to shatter both of those, or break both of those Orc Boar Boy units, or Orc Boy units. These ones taking some pounding as they get retreated, as well as they get charged in the rear by these Knights of the Realm. Over here, like the General as well, he just breaks. I think that he breaks from army routing penalty, because that's a big penalty to morale in this game. Over here, like these Black Orcs are going to be able to start plowing through these Spearman Arms. It's going to take like multiple units, and I'm actually bringing unit halberds in to deal with that as well. Over here, my Knights of the Realm had come around to the rear. I can't remember why, but I think they got a good charge against one of his retreating units or something like that, and then they just sort of died. But they did pretty good damage to this Orc Boar Boy unit before they went down, and they distracted a lot of firepower off the rest of my army. These Orc Biggins are coming back into the fight a little bit, but a lot of his units are actually fully shattered now, which is pretty bad for my opponent. What could my opponent have done differently? I think they just needed to do a proper sort of charge there. He did kind of a sloppy one. He's coming into the flanks, these Forest Goblin Spider Riders. Both these units here. His General gets killed by my Paladin over there. His Night Goblin Archers start coming into play at this point in time. Not sure if he forgot about them or if he just thought that a later time would be a good time for an ambush. Starting to pour archery fire into these Orc Biggins, Orc Boar Boy Biggins. They're a good target for that just because they're relatively soft, but they're also pretty deadly if they're allowed to fight. Paladin comes charging into these Night Goblin Archers. He's going to be able to do quite a bit. These Men-Arms, Polearms are able to fend off these Forest Goblin Spider Riders from this flank here. we're able to get a good charge Knights of the Realm style into these Orc Boarboy Biggins as they're getting shot by those arrows, and friendly fire is not as big an issue because my units are much more heavily armored than these Orc Boarboy Biggins. We're able to get our general finally to silence that Doom Knight Catapult, which I hadn't really cared about too much. It did rack up like 130 kills or something like that, and honestly, I still don't think it would have been worth going after earlier, simply because like that 130 kills isn't really too significant considering what was happening across the rest of the fight. These Black Orcs are getting mowed down to a certain extent because they're fighting polearms now. Polearms are not really taking that much damage, but they're slowly picking away at these Black Orcs here. And these Black Orcs are too tired, I think, at this point in time to fight back against these winded polearms here. And charge from the rear with the General is going to be enough to shatter them immediately. Goblin Big Boss is going to break and then shatter. He was actually terrified, but he would have probably broken pretty soon after that regardless. So yeah, that was my matches against Zearoth. He said he wasn't playing particularly well. I think he did pretty well in certain matches earlier on, and I think he did sort of worse in the latter two. But yeah, no, they were still pretty good matches, I thought. They were pretty good for gaining some insight into certain things in this game. But yeah, no, they were a lot of fun to play. I do think that maybe if he said that if he had sort of had a refreshing shower, he would have felt a bit better, maybe played a bit better. So next time we'll make sure that he gets a chance to do that. On the other hand, I was drinking this weird glass of like pumpkin puree, which was like jolting me absolutely awake because it was absolutely disgusting. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't pumpkin spice flavor; it was pumpkin, and that was a shock to the system. But anyway, yeah, no, good matches to my opponent there. And as always, I hope to see all of you all next time.